The 36 state governors on the platform of the Nigeria Governors Forum, that's the NGF, have rejected the 60,000 naira minimum wage proposal by the federal government, saying the offer is not sustainable and cannot fly. The governor said if they accept it, a few states would end up borrowing to pay workers monthly wages. Well, according to the governors, if they sustained the proposed 60,000 naira minimum wage by the federal government, many states would spend all their Federation Account Allocation Committee, that's the FAC allocations, on just paying salaries, with nothing left for development purposes. Well, the governors had made their position known in a statement by the NGF Acting Director on Media and Public Affairs, Hajia Halima Ahmed. Labour has fired back, saying governors who cannot pay the offer of 60,000 naira should just resign. I guess it's a case of if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, Dr. Sam Amadi is here to look at this face-off between Labour and the state governors. Dr. Sam Amadi, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Let's start from that retort by Labour. They're saying to the governors, look, if you think you can't pay 60,000 naira, just quit. Do these governors think really their only job is to pay salaries?
Well, I think, of course, we know that the governors seem to have a different conception of governance.
Right.
In three ways. One, they're not, apart from the so-called IGR, they're not even thinking about raising productivity. And again, they don't seem to see the value of fair wage as both a right that workers have, those who work, as well as a resource for productivity. If people are paid well, I mean, research have shown they work better, they become stakeholders in the enterprise, whether private or public, and the chances of working against the corporate interests of those establishments is less. So I think there's a zero-sum game. The governors, their perception of the state is, look, anything we pay to people that's not part of building a structure in terms of governance or in terms of infrastructure or their own direct benefit. I mean, when the governors build new government house, they don't see that as, they don't agonize much. When they, fly private jet regularly, I mean, governors, there's no urgency of governance of a state that requires.
In other words, they're not getting their priority right.
They are getting
what directly impacts on the lives of the people.
Our democracy, unfortunately, is designed in a way is too elitist. So the concept of governance and development flows from that. So you don't anything about the poor people. That's why, for example, they can build a big general hospital, open it, but they're going to build 50 small cottage clinics that have more health outcome, better health outcome for people. One big general hospital that's going to cost 500 million, 3 billion, 10 billion will be much priority, but not 10 small clinics, health centers,
dispensaries
that will. So it's a congenital problem of our democracy. And so the governors are likely crunching the numbers. Say, you mean I'm going to spend 2 billion to pay salaries
just to pay salaries?
But they're going to say, we're going to spend this 2 billion doing these zillions of things that do not add up. So I think that many of these states can actually pay, even if it's 70 or 60, they can actually pay if they prioritize. I mean, take for example, somebody talked about Governor Oti, who is seeming to be doing very well. But the same governor says, our priority right now is not paying salaries. Our priority is not job creation. So if you look at allegations also that even Abia State is owing, and they said they were doing, restructuring and all that. But they're doing roads, they're doing big contracts. So the point is that the notion of people's entitlement and well-being is not front and center of the concept of governance and development.
Like somebody said, if you build infrastructure and the lives of the people is way below, what any human being should
I'll give you an example. If you go to Akwa Ibom, for example,
it doesn't make any sense.
Airport,
but then again,
great roads, but it doesn't see many cars. So if you do impact assessments. This road network, how much do they add to economic development of the people in terms of revenue increase, in terms of business opportunities, transactions, or airborne, or any other place, for example? You discover that, our people look at infrastructure not as part of an organic structure of development. So infrastructure is like they lie apart. They don't fit, you don't chart how this infrastructure lead to more transactions, more economic development, more trading, commercial activity in rural areas. So that's the problem.
So what's the way forward now? Should the federal government just focus on its own workforce of about 1.2 million workers and just take care of that and allow organized labor to face the state government?
Well, that would defeat the whole notion of national minimum wage. And this is what it is. A national minimum wage under the National Minimum Wage Act, and even under the convention we signed up, the National Minimum Wage Determination Convention, Convention 131 particularly of 1970, which was signed in 1972, and other such, even the Constitution of 16 and 17. The idea is that the federal government federalize a bottom where nobody drops.
The lowest, yeah.
The lowest. So if you're going to have, like in the US, like in Germany, several places, if you're going to have a national wage, a national minimum wage, then if you don't have, the state don't sign up, then there's no longer a national minimum wage. It becomes raised to the bottom. So some states can say 15,000. By the way, we heard that somewhere in Nigeria, somebody was paying teachers 10,000. A governor said that's what we can pay. So I think the federal government should be more bullish to get the, and then that's the problem. If you had a federal institution or a state institution that does the real numbers, they look at first, what do they get? How much will it cost? How much are they spending on other areas? What can you resize? What can we save in cost of governance? So we're dealing with, we can't pay without no figure. The governors themselves are not bringing real statistics to say, this is what we earn, this is the other things we pay. Show us how we can pay this.
Yeah,
again,
rather than just saying we can only handle 57,000.
Exactly.
Anything above that
exactly.
is unrealistic.
So what have we done about other cost centers you need to rationalize? And then it's both a problem of concept. How important is minimum wage? And so many of us dispense, by the way, minimum wage is not for everybody. It's just for those, but people dispense those people and say, well, the minimum, we're paying the directors well, we're paying the top guys well, so private sector is paying their MDs well. So these
and
guys,
even organized private sector is saying they can't handle 60,000.
They can't handle 60,000 because, so the question is, what's the data that suggests? And then they think about this payment is to get people back to what minimum wage takes in 2015 and 30. So this is not like helping them. I mean, the idea is this: if you pay 60,000 today or 70,000, the minimum wage earner today cannot purchase basic livelihood that the minimum wage earner in 2015
Well, he can't buy a dustbin basket of tomatoes. Let's put
that way.
Yeah,
so
that yesterday was 25,000 naira.
So when the governor say, we can't pay 60, they're saying we can't afford that minimum wage worker in our state buys with a salary a basket of tomatoes. So can he buy healthcare? Can he buy education? No. So then, what then is the idea of multidimensional poverty?
What's the way out so we don't find ourselves back in the trenches where Labour is saying it's going to be an indefinite strike?
I think the way out could have been what the alleged the Minister of Finance was proposing. Okay, if you get anything upward of 65, 70, right, and then you communicate to Labour with data, like, look, we made a mistake. We're going to go back to resize the governor, because part of Labour's argument will be, okay, we can all get a haircut, we can take a shaving, but once you see all people take it, once you see the Secretary Office of the Secretary of Government take it. By the way, there was a memo leaked of 1 billion for this committee, 1 billion, and that 500 million was allegedly approved. The government is still running very recklessly, lack of financial prudence. So if government puts that 70 or whatever figure with a commitment across board to Labour, say, you know what, we know what's driving this. Inflation is driving this. Our forex policy is driving this. Our floating of the naira is driving this. Removal of subsidy for energy is driving this. So we're going to rethink all these policies, and we're going to see how we can cut down on this, so that we can free resources. Maybe in the next 6 months, next year, we can improve.
In the meantime, negotiations have ended.
Yes,
where does that
Labour
leave?
Labour can take that as okay. This 70,000, 75,000 is not up to what we need, but
it's a
it's a commitment that we're going to review things.
Right.
But to say, you know what, we can't even pay 60, I think is really frustrating, and maybe the president should be more bullish on this. And we want to see the figure. We've not seen any real economic analysis that suggests. And the key point here is you have to balance two values. One is that the minimum wage is not like a frisbee. It's not like a dodgy award. It's not like we want to help labor.
Yeah.
So we want to give workers more money. We are really trying to say, workers, we've dropped you like 360 down. Can we bring you up to, they say, bring us up to half of where we were before you came in. And somebody is saying, no, we want to leave you 300% down to the pit.
Or better still, like some would argue, bring back the basic subsidies.
If you bring those things back, then maybe you cushion all these things.
Yeah.
Then there'll be no issue. But if you are making money, because they say they're making savings, and
where are the savings going into?
Is to plough some of them back into mitigating the lowest of, and that's what theory of justice says. You know, you have
and I should have mentioned this too.
Yeah.
I mean, the FAC allocation, you know, has
increased.
doubled. Yeah, from 700 billion to over 1 trillion.
So if they have doubled, then the theory of justice that we support says you should give more to the lowest. Right. If there's an increase, you give more to the lowest, because those are the people who have less. So you don't increase, you give more to those who have more. That fits the theory of justice. So you have to give more to those who have less, because that's what the improvement requires. So I'm not convinced that the governors are putting the lens of human development. They're putting the lens of elitism, and that's dangerous for economic policy in a poverty-ridden developing country.
Yeah, 133 million dimensionally poor.
With no access to health, education, and the basic minimum should have helped them.
Dr. Sam Amadi is a good place to live it. Thank you very much. A Rise analyst joining us on Newsnight.